Alright guys, what's good? It's Ilsun 4K, and we are officially live with Everything Under the Sun Podcast. Now, if you've never been here before, which is an astonishing chance you have never been here before, how it works is, we have a podcast about geek stuff and horror stuff. So more or less, video games and horror stuff. You have your comic book movie stuff thrown in there. You know, we've done this before. Again, this is just if you're new, if you've never been here, let me explain how everything's work. It's a podcast, it's a vlogcast, you know, I post it on YouTube, I'm trying to get it on Spotify, and I just keep on forgetting, I'm not going to lie, I'm so focused on YouTube and Twitch that Spotify has eluded me, and I will get this on Spotify, mark my words, I will absolutely, I promise you, get this on Spotify. I'll start having guests on here as well, that'll be fun. I got people that are, you know, in tone with the show's nature that are going to really fit, and it's going to be great. We got some news today involving Sony. We got some tidbits involving Nintendo. Dying Light 2 news, which also released, which I've been playing non-stop. If you catch me on my Twitch, you've been seeing that a lot. If you catch anybody on Twitch, you're probably seeing that a lot. Who the fuck am I kidding? A little bit of horror movie news. Sequel to a movie that nobody asked, but it's still going to be kind of fun. And PlayStation VR 2. So yeah, let's get right into it. Let's continue where we were last week. If you remember last week, we were talking about the whole Microsoft, Bungie, Blizzard, Activision merger. You know, Microsoft buying Blizzard and Activision, and what that meant for the gaming industry, and how people, you know, saying, oh, you know, now Microsoft is going to keep all the exclusives for itself. Sony won't be able to release any sort of new content or blah, blah, blah. You know, more or less thinking ignorant because, hang on, wait, I'm sorry, folks. I'm trying to get something. That way I can see, because one of the cameras that I'm recording with is in the way, and it's not that camera over there, if you're wondering what that is. Well, I'll probably be edited out, who cares. So let's move onward. Let's have our morning tea. So as I said, people think that the way you make money by buying studios for $69 billion is by not selling exclusives to your competition, and that's just foolish. So Sony apparently has come and bought their own studio now, Bungie, acquired for $3.6 billion, which does pale in comparison to the $69 billion that Microsoft paid for Blizzard Activision, but that was a whole other monster, and that was also kind of on sale because of all the turmoil inside of the Blizzard offices with the scandal going on of people treating female employees and even new recruit male employees the wrong way entirely, and people being punished. Some CEOs stepped down, and a lot of shit happened that hurt the Blizzard Activision name, and Microsoft, for all intents and purposes, came in and swooped in, and they got themselves a nice deal. But it seems that, according to this, it says Bungie was bought by Sony for $3.6 billion. PS boss Herman Hulst has said that, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Bungie to the PlayStation family. Bungie created a community-driven games with outstanding technology that are enormous fun to play, and I know everyone at PlayStation Studios will be about what we can share and learn together. Alright, well, for those of you that don't know, the kind of absolute insanity about them buying Bungie is, Bungie actually, once upon a time, and I'm talking a long time ago, I'm talking before Microsoft even had the system out, Bungie was a small little magazine article in Game Informer that I saw. And when I say it was small, I mean it was like a tidbit, like the tiniest thing. And I mean, like, I can still see it. It says, Bungie developing first-person shooter game Halo for Xbox, or something along those lines. I can't quote it exactly. It was, you know, over 20 years ago. But I remember being, like, blown away. Like, wow, there's a Microsoft game coming out, and the screenshot looks very impressive for the little tiny screenshot that it was. It was clearly some next-gen shit, and the PlayStation 2 was definitely going to have some competition. Anyway, they're the people who made Halo, so they don't make it anymore. Apparently that was sold off to whoever owns it now, if I recall correctly. I can't recall the name of the studio, but I know Microsoft ultimately owns Halo, to my understanding, or owns something about the franchise. I'm sure Bill Gates made sure that stays in the Microsoft realm and is not going anywhere anytime soon. But Bungie was in fact purchased by Sony, and this was not a knee-jerk reaction actually to this. It was actually something that was acquired months ago, according to insider sources. And it says Bungie will continue to release multi-platform games going forward, and the company will have the option to self-publish and reach players where they choose, GI Biz reported. So, more or less, is this Jim Ryan that we're talking about here? Let me see. Yeah. So, we had a strong partnership with Bungie since the inception of the Destiny franchise, which they also make, and I couldn't be more thrilled to officially welcome the studio to the PlayStation family. Sony Interactive, SIE, I guess that's Sony Interactive Entertainment President and CEO Jim Ryan. However, this is something that makes sense to what I've been saying and trying to explain to everybody, but nobody wants to listen to. We understand how vital Bungie's community is to the studio and look forward to supporting them as they remain independent and continue to grow. Like Bungie, our community is the core to PlayStation's DNA, and our shared passion for the gamer and building the best place to play will evolve even further. So, more or less, what that is saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that absolutely we are going to release games on other consoles. Why the fuck wouldn't we? We need to make this money back. That's how it works. At the end of the day, every Xbox player, PlayStation 5 player, PC players, money is green, and we will take it. Console exclusives are a dying trend, and it's kind of sad to say, but it's on its way out the door. Even God of War and, what was that, Horizon have come to PC, and I have played God of War on PC. I have it, and I've turned it all the way up with ultra 4K settings on my 3090, all that crazy shit, and it is gorgeous. A PS4 Pro, a PS5 could never, ever, ever, ever. Even when the games do get, 60 frames per second in 4K, it's a little rough, but it's still great, and it's still awesome. I just need to see what can go on with the idea of this keeping moving forward, because I don't see why you wouldn't want to make more money with this. Why wouldn't you want to make money? And that's why I don't understand console fanboys who make me have brain farts and I can't even continue thinking and hold coherent sentences because I want to escape the idea that the way to make money by spending $69 billion is limiting the amount of people who can get your product, but that's most certainly not the case. That's how it's not. That's just not the case. So let's see what else we got here. So in addition to this, Sony is actually set to acquire more studios after Bungie. And that comes from a source, Christopher Dring. He said, Jim Ryan told me we should expect more when it comes to further PlayStation acquisitions, right? So Sony's acquisition of Bungie only comes weeks after Microsoft's historic buyout of Activision Blizzard was first announced. Sony and Microsoft continue these industry-altering acquisitions. It's clear the two companies are hoping to secure as much exclusive possible content for their individual platforms. Though Microsoft looks set to keep certain games multi-platform for the time being, and Bungie's games will stay on other platforms too. So, I'm kind of blown away by the I don't know. It's a little bit of an ironic statement if you think about it. They're like, oh, we're trying to secure exclusivity for our platforms, but the idea of exclusivity for your platforms doesn't even really exist. Realistically, there are some games for Xbox that don't come out on PS5, but they do come out on PC. So you have to think about it what exclusivity? What exclusivity are you talking about? If you have a PC and a PS5, you don't need an Xbox. So that's a little bit of a confusing thing to really think about. But of course, people are going to still buy Xboxes, and no one really needs to sit and ponder about what a PC that can compete with an Xbox Series 1X or Xbox Series X would really cost, because that's a moot point. It's about the fact that you can have your cake and eat it too. It's just, in the console world, people don't exactly have the highest IQ when it comes to being fans. I was guilty of it at one point too, once upon a time, but I don't know, man. I always kind of had all systems as well. I had a PlayStation, I had an N64. I didn't have a Sega Saturn because it was out of production by the time I wanted, one. I had the PlayStation 2, I had a Dreamcast at the same time. I just didn't see a point to it. So, moving onward into more great news about studio acquisitions, let's talk about something really, really crazy. Gotta take a sip, because this is a subject right here. This is a company that continues to go above and beyond. Hang on. In the realm of just keeping it together for themselves in the video game world. I want to be quite honest with you. If you want to pick a company that actually has console exclusives and is on point to the brand 100% and never loses its way, I'll level with you. Motherfucking Nintendo. Yes. It says, Nintendo has been stated as saying, not stated, but Microsoft and Sony made headlines in January for their acquisitions of Bungie and Activision Blizzard. Nintendo has been largely silent on the topic of consolidation in the gaming industry. Well, yeah, they don't need to worry about it. Nintendo is what happens when you have brand loyalty that exists over generations. There are people out there that were like younger than me playing Pokemon when it came out. I was like 12 or 13. There are people who are in their early 20s, and I'm honestly, seriously, I'm 36. I'm not gonna lie. There are people in their mid to late 20s, let's say. Let's be a little more mid to late 20s with kids who are playing Pokemon that are posting TikToks about how excited their kids are playing Pokemon. Meanwhile, those parents knew nothing of the 150 original Pokemon. They only knew the 200 or 300 that existed after the fact. It's unbelievable, the depth and reach of Nintendo's generational affairs. It's not even like, I'll tell you the truth, I wasn't even born when Nintendo came out at all. Nintendo came out in the tri-state area where I live in late 85 as a test market. I was born in January of 86. I missed the original launch by months. And I mean months, like probably came out in September, September, August maybe, and I was born in January. So I won't sit there and tell you that I played it when it came out, but I will tell you I can remember being the youngest kid in the world, always asking to play the Nintendo, because it was just like, it was an enamoring product. It was unbelievable. It was like nothing I had ever seen before. To my little tiny pea brain mind, I grew up watching cartoons, and to kind of see this semi-cartoon simulation going off on the screen, no one ever really pulled that off to me before. It had been done before by Atari, and I can never sit here and say Nintendo is the one that brought the home console home. Atari, of course, is the one that brought the home console home, and is also part of the reason it crashed without having product regulation, blah, blah, blah. Nintendo comes back, as we all know, in the hero and the cape in the 80s, and it has an M on its hat. It's a plumber, actually. It's not a hero and a cape. And all of a sudden, we have Nintendo. Nintendo is generational. And it's funny because I got a Nintendo when I was like 4 or 5, and to think about the fact that like there were kids who were like 12 and 14 getting that when I was 4 or 5. Those people have also since, put it into their children in like, the early 2000s about Nintendo. You can't really kill Nintendo. They are unbelievably insane. I used to actually be able to say you'll never see like a Grand Theft Auto game on Nintendo Switch, but that's not the case anymore after Grand Theft Auto, the remastered edition, dropped. We don't really talk about that. That was apparently a botched launch, and no one wants to no one wants to believe the game exists. I almost want to say there is no Grand Theft Auto game on Nintendo systems, but there was, of course, in the Game Boy Advance days, but there was never a real, like, what's the word I'm looking for? A never main console release of a Grand Theft Auto game. Never on N64, never on GameCube, never on Wii, never on Wii U, now on Switch. Moving forward from there, you just got to respect the fact that Nintendo doesn't need to acquire studios. Nintendo could sit there all day and sell Kirby games, like, for the rest of its fucking life. They do not care. They could give zero fucks about any of the things going on around them. They're kind of cool with Microsoft, which is really fantastic because it's nice to see two people playing together while Sony is forcibly being adapted into this whole affair of understanding that it needs to be multi-platform. But the wildest part about Nintendo is, again, they don't need to put Mario anywhere. I don't know if we'll ever truly see Mario on an Xbox or a PlayStation or a PC without being hacked or modded. That's the truth right there. And I don't know why we would. I mean, just think about the fact of, like, imagine Zelda Breath of the Wild actually showing up on the Steam store. That would make God of War showing up on the Steam store look like nothing. Nothing at all. It's just unbelievable. And the craziest part is, Nintendo's consistently on brand to the point where, like, you look at, like, right now I'm looking at a picture of Smash Brothers, and it's just like, okay, everybody on this is, like, Nintendo affiliated, or, like, you have Roy and Marth and all that stuff from, Fire Emblem. But the craziest part is Ryu is in here, and I'm like, what the fuck is Ryu doing in here? I was like, Ryu? And then I thought about it. Ryu is in here in Smash Brothers, even though he is not technically a Nintendo affiliated character. Like, you can't remember a Nintendo game that had Ryu in it, really, but you can remember a Super Nintendo game, and that was actually Street Fighter 2, because Nintendo hosted the first ever home console release mostly in the whole entire world, of Street Fighter 2. That's right. Super Nintendo was the first time you ever played it. I had a friend from the Philippines who actually had the cart, and it was an American cart. He had Japanese games too. He had Street Fighter 2, and I remember being so blown away by it. I remember renting it, and I remember being like, wow, that makes so much sense. And, they got Solid Snake in there, and that's an easy one to remember, of course, because Metal Gear Solid, the very, very first one, was released on Nintendo in the 80s, and it was really good for its time. It was like the first ever stealth 8-bit game. It was really, really good. And it's just they're so consistently on point because, of course, they have Castlevania in there. But Castlevania, of course, makes sense because there was 3 of them. Well, technically 4 or 5 of them on a Nintendo system before, actually, yeah, there's even more. I'm not even factoring the 2 N64 games. Yeah, that made sense. It's just Nintendo's very on brand. It's absolutely so amazing how I just rip on them so much because they really need to get that 4K Switch out because that is killing me. But yeah, Nintendo isn't interested, but I will say this, moving on with more Nintendo news in the light of the Nintendo Switch, which I just brought up, segueing our way into the next part, we have, what was it? The Nintendo Switch is actually in the, what is it? Is it only? Wow. So 5 years in, Nintendo said that the Switch is in the middle of its life cycle. That's right. Middle of its life cycle. The Switch now outsells the Wii and shows no signs of slowing down. That's kind of impressive because that chip shortage is a bitch. Let me tell you, I had to build a PC in the beginning of the chip shortage. Oh, it was fucking nightmare building a PC. Should have just brought a pre-built, but I didn't know that at the time. Anyway, so the Switch outsells the Wii and shows no signs of slowing down, as stated by an article. And it's kind of insane because it was the, who was it? President Shuntaro Furuwaka. Shuntaro Furuwaka believes that Switch is actually just in the middle of its life cycle. Wow. That's incredible to hear that actually coming from Nintendo. So, you got to think about it, the fact that there's so much more for them to do. I heard there's no more Smash Brothers DLC coming out, which means that they're definitely moving on to bigger and better projects. I just keep on hearing this rumbling, and I really hope it's true, that there's a 4K Switch on the way that will be backwards compatible with the old games and try to semi-optimize them the way, like, I don't know, I guess a PlayStation 2 tried to optimize a PlayStation 1's games. I don't know. I'm unaware. I know the hardware's a lot better now than back then. But as I said, I know the hardware's a lot better now back than it was then. And it really allows the idea of a 4K Switch to finally materialize. Because let's be real, guys. Like, I'm sitting here praising Nintendo. I love them to death. But as I was just saying before I got into this part of the podcast, Nintendo needs to fucking get it together with its hardware. This whole, like, barely 1080p when dock Switch shit is not cutting it in the next generation. I know the Switch came out in a really strange time. Switch came out, like, what was it? Switch came out in 2017, I want to say. What was that, March 2017? And when it came out, it was like the PS4 and the Xbox One X were already on their way out, so to speak. They were just starting to, like, really, like, not matter as we work towards the late, let's just say it was the Twilight years, right? Twilight years or late end years, I don't know. Either way, Nintendo comes out with this new console. 4K technology hasn't yet been realized in terms of development and an affordability rate for Nintendo whatsoever, because Nintendo always was a little underpowered, but not like it has been recently. Like the GameCube versus the PS2 and the Xbox wasn't too bad. The Wii versus, the PS3 and the Xbox 360 was a little noticeable because it actually did not have HDMI. For those of you who remember, the Wii, the original Wii, not the Wii U, had no HDMI whatsoever. Period. There was 0 HDMI outputs. And that's kind of insane to think about because, like I said, your competition has that. And I can't remember. The Wii actually, I think, came out after the PS3 and the Xbox 360 by a good bit. So this time around, it's a little more understandable. But Nintendo has always been this, make it at a price point where people can afford it, even if the hardware is a little underperforming versus our competition. But this needs to stop because 4K is here. 4K is fabulous. And 4K TVs, well, before the chip shortage, were like, I bought mine for $300. All right, I bought a 4K TV for $300, and it looks great. My friend has a really expensive OLED TV, and even he was like, wow, for $300, that's actually really good and not too far off from what I have. But I've seen his, and it's gorgeous. His is definitely better than mine. But for $300, you can get a 4K TV. For $300, I can get a Switch. Like, what's the problem here? Why Nintendo? Why? 5 years in, it's unbelievable, and we need something else, right? I'm just looking around, making sure I'm not the only one. We need something else. We need a 4K Switch. We need Breath of the Wild 2 to work on that 4K Switch. And the sad part is that they say if there is a 4K Switch, it isn't coming along until at least 2024, which is also some other year that something really cool is supposed to come out. And I'll show you when we talk about it. So, speaking of the Nintendo Switch and Nintendo, who is notorious right now for being absolutely fucking furious if you so much as paint a Mario picture and try and sell it on eBay without their opinion, and they will come after you. If they catch you wearing an unlicensed Nintendo shirt of Mario, they will slice it off your back and hit you with a cease and desist lawsuit and then take your house. They're not fucking around with their IPs lately, all right? Nintendo's been a little rough. All companies have been a little rough with everything, not just their IPs, just gamers in general. So we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, the guy who actually made the Nintendo Switch mod chip, whose name, and I shit you not, his name is actually Gary Bowser. Gary Bowser pled guilty last year to 2 charges against him and his Switch hacker group, Team Executor. So, this is the guy who made the mod chip that lets you play pirated games on your Switch. Now, mod chips are nothing new. Let's be honest, all right? If I was just talking about, PlayStation before, the original mod chip that changed the game was the PlayStation mod chip. It was a mod chip that let you read burnt, because you used to be able to take a PlayStation disc, put it into a computer, copy the information, and write it onto a CDR. And if you tried to put it into the PlayStation, it wouldn't work without the mod chip because the copyright protection label wouldn't get read because you couldn't burn that. It was non-transferable data, as you might call it. And from there, they came up with a way to have a chip that you would solder in. You would take your PlayStation apart and you would solder it in at these 3 points. And from there, you would be able to play pirated games. Yes, real deal pirated games. And you could just burn the games and put them on. So this is nothing new. It's been around forever, ever. A lot of systems had them. I think even Xboxes had them. And games started getting developed for the PlayStation before I go onward that actually could detect if you had a mod chip and wouldn't run. And then you had to go install a mod chip too, which bypassed that stuff. It was some shit back in the day. Oh man, I miss those mod chip days. I had a Pro Action Replay. I had a plug-on device that worked in the back versus the mod chip in the middle. It was great. So anyway, Gary Bowser, the guy who invented the mod chip, is looking at 5 years in prison. 5 years in prison for developing mod chips, and they're not happy with him. U.S. government they extradited him. Check this out. Gary Bowser swears that he only made $320,000 from this whole affair. But Bowser agreed to pay Nintendo $10 million in a separate civil lawsuit. This was the culmination of years of Nintendo chasing down Bowser and his associates. Wow. So it's basically up to a federal judge now to decide how much time this Gary Bowser guy is going to get, which is fucking insane because his lawyer wants to get him 19 months, and that's really, kind of shitty. But the craziest part is the guy's name is Gary Bowser, and he was arrested, and he's from the Dominican Republic, apparently. That's insane. They Batman Dark Knighted him straight the fuck out of Dominican Republic. They arrested him, and they had him extradited and brought here without a shadow of a doubt. And that's how aggressive Nintendo's IP team is and all that stuff. Because it's unbelievable what Nintendo has to lose. I think it's really, really, it's insane that the guy might go to jail, and I really hope he doesn't, but he definitely is, because Nintendo doesn't have a lot of wiggle room on its profit margins. Nintendo doesn't have a lot of, like, outside third-party help coming in because the Switch can't really run a lot of solid third-party games. I mean, Dying Light just came to the Switch this year, the original one. And Dying Light 2 just is set to come, but who knows how the fuck that's going to work. They'll probably have it on some cloud-based software, so that way you could play it but not actually, like, you know, overload the Switch, which seems to be the way they're trying to go with the Switch. And for the low hardware games they have, I guess it'll work, but streaming software never works out long-term, and we'll talk about that later on in this podcast, too. We have an article involving that. Something involving gaming, streaming of gaming. So, Nintendo, like I said, doesn't have a lot of wiggle room on profit, needs to keep as much sales inside that they can, not lose sales to Gary Bowser and his people that hacked the thing. Guy's looking at 19 months if his lawyer can keep him straight, but it's all up to a federal judge now, and that's absolutely insane to imagine a guy going to jail for making mod chips. And that's what happens when you break the law, though, and you go against copyright charges. It's really how it goes. All right, so... Oh, well, actually, speaking of streaming gaming that doesn't go right, it's actually the next article I have here. Google is quietly ditching Stadia. Yep, that's right. Streaming gaming that I was just talking about might working for low-power Nintendo games really, really, really doesn't work out well for higher-powered games at all. According to the report, this is characterized by insiders as a demotion for the entire Stadia service following disappointing sales and performance far below Google's expectations. Because, like, don't get me wrong, gaming is a culture. Gaming is a way of, a life of some people. I mean, look at me. I'm still into gaming at 36 after not playing games for, like, I don't know, there's like a 5-year window I just didn't play video games. I came back, and I'm having fun, and I like doing this stuff. But the technology of this is unbelievable. Like, in order for Google Stadia to work, you really need a pretty fast internet connection. I pay around, like, I hate to say it, I pay $80 for just internet, and I have a 1 gigabyte connection that's, like, through the roof fast, like, Verizon, Fios, whatever. I'm a streamer. I like to provide the best content, so I have the best connection. End of story. Probably more than I need, but I'd imagine you at least need $50 to $60 a month internet speeds. Just internet, not cable or anything else, to get Stadia to work, plus its subscription fee. And then you have to wonder about the quality of the games, the content of the games, who's clogging up the server, how many people are on it. It's a really, really, really good idea on paper, but it's actually flawed upon execution if you don't have millions upon millions of dollars to put into it to arrange servers like that. And I'm not saying Google didn't, but Google did not advertise that to people correctly. They didn't explain to people that it's a package deal that you kind of really do need to have Stadia and fast internet. And it's such a variable affair. Whereas when you buy a game or you install a game on a computer or an Xbox and you have a slow internet connection, it affects your online play, yes, and it affects the amount of time it takes to download that game. I mean, I met a kid who was downloading Red Dead Redemption 3. Red Dead Redemption 3, God, imagine that. Red Dead Redemption 2. He was downloading it through Wi-Fi at his house for 5 hours and joined me in the stream while he waited for it to finish because he just wanted to watch somebody play the game. And I was like, Jesus Christ. So if it takes you 5 hours to download Red Dead Redemption, that's nothing new through Wi-Fi. But you could never play a game through that. It would be fucking impossible. I don't know. To my understanding, a lot of people aren't about it. Let's keep on scrolling down. Yeah, only 20% of the focus now at Stadia was on the gaming side. Wow. But, let's see. Yeah, it seems like Stadia is really on its way out. Wow. Who would have guessed? Oh, wow. Stadia faced multiple lawsuits? What? Let me see this. Oh. Google facing a class action lawsuit over Stadia's lack of true 4K gaming. Wow. So they were trying to do... Even Stadia's trying to do 4K gaming, and Nintendo can't fucking get it together. This is unbelievable. Let's see. Stadia, by saying games like Destiny 2 and Doom Eternal could hit 4K resolution at 60 frames per second. Wow, actually, As noted by PC Gamer, the suit alleges that Google, Bungie, and ID Software misrepresented the capabilities of Stadia by saying games like Destiny 2 and Doom Eternal could hit 4K resolution at 60 frames per second. Turns out neither game was playable in 4K. Well then, that makes total fucking sense now, doesn't it? Holy crap, man. Wow. Holy crap. The suit was initially filed with the Supreme Court of New York, but lawyers for ID Software filed to move to the Eastern District of New York, a federal court. Most civil suits, class action suits in particular, take an enormous amount of time, often years, to work their way through the courts. Beyond that, the vast majority of classes settle either as a class or individual basis. Wow. Okay, so this whole Stadia thing's been a fucking disaster from like, when was this? Wow, this is actually almost a year ago, 2/22/21. Well, what matters is that they tried it, and I just don't think internet connections are there collectively as a society for people to afford something like this. Especially because, like I said, you need the Stadia account, and then you need a fast internet connection. And it just adds up really fast to over, like, I don't know, you could easily do $100 a month with this, I'd imagine. I imagine if you fuck around and, like, consider some other things, it could be $100 a month. But hey, what are you going to do? But let's talk about some good news here, because it was a little dreary there. Dying Light 2 has released. Oh, man. I need to stretch because that game is fucking awesome. All right. Oh, man. Sorry, guys. I had to stretch there. So, Dying Light 2 has a huge start on Steam and reaches 169,000 concurrent players on PC. Yeah, that's awesome. So, Dying Light 2 has been doing fantastic. I actually got the game, and I'll give you a brief rundown of it, because I actually have a video where I talk about, like, I streamed it for 4.5 hours the first night I got it. Like, no questions asked, just went right in, 4.5 hour stream. People thought it was cool. People liked it. I like it. I just streamed it again last night on my Monday Night Massacre stream, and it's such a good game. It's so much fun. It's like Dying Light 1 times 10. Like, it's gotten to the point where I'm starting to feel familiar when I do things that I remember from Dying Light 1, because I was so enamored and so blown away by a new game in the series that I didn't know how to really, process what I had already seen, because it's been so long. And it's just fantastic. The game runs at a great rate on my PC. You know, my setup's insane, so I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm routinely pulling in ultra, 4K mode, 60 to 70 frames per second, sometimes 80 frames per second. And that's actually kind of low for my setup. So I'm watching the new games become harder and harder for, current hardware to keep up GPU-wise. And it's got me really looking at that new hardware that's coming out. Like, they have a bunch of new cards coming out to have me super excited. But yeah, anyway, back to Dying Light 2. We're having a good time. You could build bases in it just like you could. You could unlock windmills. I've been saving people. People say the main character isn't anything fun or anything fun to, care about. I don't know. I like the guy. His name is Aiden, and I'm not going to sit here and give any spoilers out, but he's got a pretty cool story. He's a pretty noble guy, and I've been, messing around with it, trying to see what the long-term decision-making things can be. I'm trying to make only good decisions, because as I said in my previous podcast, I'm playing Red Dead Redemption where I am not making good decisions and just, blowing people away, lassoing them off horses. So I'm really trying to... Oh, my alarm's going off. I'm really trying to lasso... I was really trying to lasso people. That's hilarious. I am, trying to be really, really polite in Dying Light 2. There's a whole bunch of shit going on. It's enough of bad nonsense as it is. Oh, my God. I can only imagine if I was a shitty person. If I just pushed people off the buildings and, fed them to zombies and weird shit. You can do a lot of cool stuff. It's really interesting because, this time around, the city has more of, an atmosphere and, a light, I know this is a joking word, a light to it. You can run around and you won't just find, evil people. You find really awesome people just camping together, and you can sit with them and you can barter with them, and you can do a lot of cool things. It's a very alive town. At night, it's a very dead town and very fucking terrifying. There's some new boss type ultra mutations that you could fight at night that help you unlock things. I gotta recommend it. I want to say definitely at least 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10 if I had to be super generous about it. Very good game, very enjoyable. Room for improvement in I don't know. Some aspects. I just can't think about them right now. So 8.5 like out of 10. Definitely recommend it. Really awesome game. That's definitely something else. Let's see what else happens. What else do we got? Oh, yes. Very interesting. We got some VR news here. Console-related VR news, actually. The PlayStation 2 VR pre-orders. You can sign up for notifications now. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. PlayStation 2 VR orders are ready to go. Let me pull this article back up. Make sure something was still recording. PlayStation 2 VR orders are ready to go. Considering how quickly PlayStation 5 pre-orders sold out when they went live, you'll definitely want to know when the headset is available. You can sign up for a mailing list that just went live on PlayStation's official website. Sony will send PlayStation VR 2 news, including when you can pre-order directly to your inbox. Wow. So you can sign up for a VR 2 mailing list, and it'll actually sign up for letting you have pre-orders. So the PS VR 2 has an OLED display capable of running games at 4K HDR up to 120 Hz. And I actually believe that because the Oculus can run games at 5K, and it's really, really easy to fit a small, nice screen inside of something versus a large, big screen inside of something. Especially when we're talking OLED. That's really awesome because all it really is two separate panels, and that would be fantastic. Perhaps most notably, the PS VR 2 has eye tracking, which intends to add another layer of immersion. Brand new Sense controllers have finger touch detection, a motion sensor, and haptic feedback. The headset itself also offers haptic feedback. Wow, the headset vibrates? That's insane. I gotta tell you, I just tried an Oculus Quest 2 the other day. Actually, like 2 weeks ago, I was at a friend's house, and I just put it on, I looked around with it, and I didn't really play any games with it. I just kind of dicked around and saw what was going on. He didn't have any games on it. He just bought it. He's not really a gamer. And I was just like, all right, let me check this out. It was really cool and interesting. Just messing around and seeing what it could and couldn't register. I could only imagine what was possible as I thought, wow, if it can read like this, that means it could do something like this. And that I hear that Resident Evil 4 game is absolutely fantastic. Like, it's something that gives you an idea of where the benchmark is for VR in terms of games that can be installed on the headset. We're at like really, really, really nice upscaled GameCube graphics. Okay, I'll take it. You know, VR came a long way to someone my age from being this, tiny little idea of a movie representation in like the 80s, or, walking past it at the mall and having to pay like $50 to use some like pseudo VR that isn't really full VR. It's unbelievable to see VR is available at the fact where I can literally get up from this podcast now, go out and buy a VR headset and come back in under like 45 minutes while the podcast was running. That's incredible. I could literally do it on the way home from work. I don't have to special pre-order it or anything. This is obviously a different story because the PlayStation VR 2 is going to be subject to our favorite thing ever, scalpers. Dirty, fucking, terrible scalpers. Awful people trying to make money off somebody's hard work by making more money off of another person's hard work by buying the original person's hard work, in this case a PSVR 2, and then selling it to someone who has to work hard, such as myself or you. And now, I don't even want to talk about it. It gets me so pissed off. But anyway, PlayStation 2 VR pre-orders are able to be signed up for. You should really make sure you do that if you want a PlayStation VR 2. I myself am considering it. Oh, actually, more Google Stadia news. As of February 4th, which is 4 days ago, Google is reportedly trying to salvage the Stadia title under the name Google Stream. Okay, that's interesting. I forgot I had this backup article. Google has reportedly changed the branding of Stadia's technology in order to shout the platform's streaming capabilities to other partners. The platform's streaming technology is under the name Google Stream. Okay. That's sort of insane. Is this really, like, a thing? Like, yeah. Well, it appears that... Wow. Well, they're trying to... They're trying to figure out a way to salvage this, it seems like. Like, they don't even know what they're doing. Like, Google managed to successfully pitch its Stadia technology to AT&T, where customers were able to stream Batman Arkham Knight directly from their web browser. The Google spokesperson Patrick Sable told Business Insider, "We announced our intentions of helping publishers and partners deliver games directly to games last year and have been working towards that. The first manifestation has been our partnership with AT&T, who is offering Batman Arkham Knight to their customers for free." Well, you always get weird perks whenever you work for, or whenever you get, that's really funny. You always get weird perks whenever you, get a phone company. Like, I got Paramount Plus out of nowhere, and I got Disney Plus for being a T-Mobile user, which is rather interesting now that I think about it. I didn't even put the two and two together that I had gotten that much from just being there. But, like, AT&T's like, yeah, here's Batman Arkham Knight on a streaming software that, works good for this one game, I'm sure, because they probably put a lot of time and effort into making sure that one game with a very popular IP and review and fan base behind it would really like it. But are they going to put it into everything? Meh, we'll see. But apparently not. But I don't know. I think the idea of streaming games is interesting. When I can't find a good game that I want to emulate, like, for example, if I want to emulate Narc, that's one that I cannot get to emulate at all. Narc, the original arcade game, I cannot get emulated at all on MAME or anything or any software. It just doesn't happen for me. I don't know what I'm doing. So I can go online and I can play a streaming version of it, but streaming like a game that's a couple like 100 or 1,000 kilobytes big versus like something that's gigabytes big is night and day. It's apples to oranges. You can't compare something that like has a file size this big to something like bigger than like the space I'm recording in comparison. If you want to get like down to nitty gritty about it, you can't expect that. The technology is there, I believe it, yes, but I do not believe home internet user technology is there enough for this to actually work and make sense, as I said before. Okay, so what else do we got? Oh, wow. Nice. All right. In the most uninteresting news of all time that nobody could give a single flying fuck about in any way, shape, and or form, and I mean not a single fuck. The Grand Theft Auto 5 release date for PS5 and Xbox Series X is March 15th. 4K 60 frames per second, improvements in detail. Well, as a PC player, I can just tell you this. Not going to be as pretty as a PC Master Race. Bitches! No, I'm just kidding. It's not PC Master Race. It is, but it's not like anybody's impressed with this. I've seen this game forever. I played it for the first time in 2013. It was the reason I bought a 1080p television. My girlfriend got me a 1080p television for Christmas because she knew I was getting a PS5 with Grand Theft Auto 5. A PS3 with Grand Theft Auto 5 installed in it. I'm not lying. That's how old this game is. I bought my first 1080p television to play Grand Theft Auto 5 in 2013, and it is almost 10 years later, and Grand Theft Auto 5 is now releasing for that. Let's see. Upgrades. Let's take a look at the upgrades, because it just means more traffic and people at this point. Maybe prettier rays of sunshine. Oh boy, that shark looks better. Just kidding, I can't say it. Getting into technical specifics, GTA 5 for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X will have new graphic modes that support resolutions up to 4K and frame rates up to 60 frames per second. All right, let's take a look at that. Frame rates up to 4K, frame rates up to 60 frames per second and resolutions up to 4K. You are definitely not getting 4K, 60 frames per second, 100% of the time. You're definitely going to get 4K 30 frames per second, maybe 60 every so often, which is fine for console. 4K 30 frames per second is pretty cool. But who needs this? What does it matter? Why are you doing this? There's no need for this anymore. You need to just make Grand Theft Auto 6. Why aren't you making Grand Theft Auto 6? Because you're fucking around. So let's take a look at the next piece of news. GTA development is well underway, Rockstar confirms. See what I did there? Really, though, Grand Theft Auto 6 is well underway, according to Rockstar. They said, the same day that they announced the release date for Grand Theft Auto 5 on the next generation consoles, because I knew what they were fucking doing, people. Let's get it together. We all know Rockstar's on some dick shit, just like everyone else in the industry. With the unprecedented longevity of GTA 5, we know many of you have been asking us about a new entry in the Grand Theft Auto series. With every new project we embark on, our goal is to significantly move beyond what we have previously delivered, and we are pleased to confirm that active development for the next entry in the Grand Theft Auto series is well underway, Rockstar said. We look forward to sharing more as soon as we are ready. So, let's just take a moment and understand what that means. Grand Theft Auto 6 is actually being made. Like, we always knew it was being made, but we've heard rumors. I mean, we heard this was the year that Grand Theft Auto 6 was coming out for how long? 2022? Some analysts believe it could release as soon as 2023. I mean, if it's been secretly in development this like past 2 or 3 years, I could believe it with the way hardware's been and dev kits and, you know, everything that's coming out. You know, PS5 dev kits have definitely been around for quite some time. So I wouldn't be surprised if Grand Theft Auto 6 was being worked on in a PlayStation dev kit somewhere deep within the bowels of Take-Two or Rockstar buildings somewhere in their developmental team, with people who have to like sign NDAs, just to go in and out of work every single day. Going to the bathroom requires like several eyeball scan type of shits. I cannot wait for Grand Theft Auto 6 because I'll tell you what, as much as I love Dying Light 2 and I love Cyberpunk and everything like that, I did just download Red Dead Redemption 2 during Christmas. And, yeah, Rockstar's still king of the open world games, ladies and gentlemen. And Rockstar will continue to be king of the open world games as long as they keep pushing themselves to develop new content that just keeps going above and beyond what they had before. Grand Theft Auto 5 versus Grand Theft Auto 4 is a gigantic leap. The same way Grand Theft Auto 3 to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, while still being on the same hardware, was a gigantic leap from one another. Vice City was just a masterful piece of work that took what was in 3 and improved on it in little ways until they could really get, you know, down and juicy with new ways in San Andreas. Rockstar is forever innovating ways to make new stuff and games for themselves. And while we can be so pissed off that they continued making Grand Theft Auto 5 for literally 10 fucking years now, almost 10 years, I hope not getting sick. For 10 years now, there's just only like so much we can take. It has to be done. No more. Grand Theft Auto 6 needs to come out in 2024 like it's supposed to due to analysts. But again, who knows when it comes out. Even if it comes out in 2025, it'll be fantastic, but I cannot imagine it goes much past 2024 because they're really pushing their luck at 11 years with one game. I think they might lose sales if they don't do it sooner than not. But I'm just excited because it's Grand Theft Auto 6. It's been confirmed, and everything's great in the world. So let's see what else we got coming on here. It looks like we have good news on a game that last week... Hang on. We have good news on a game that last week actually had some bad news for it, which was the second time it had bad news because it's being delayed. But we're going to start off our horror section with... what do we got here? Where the hell do I... You'll be able to pre-order Evil Dead starting next week, which is actually today. Wow. All right. Yeah, as of February 4th, you'll be able to pre-order Evil Dead starting next week, which is this week, which is today. Sorry, I'm having... never doing a podcast on an empty stomach again. That's a bad idea. So Evil Dead, you'll be able to pre-order it this coming week, which is great. The game will be released May 13th, 2022, so that's definitive. But last week, we found out that the game was, in fact, delayed, which was sad, to May 13th. But now it's good news because we can pre-order it this week. And let's see. Bruce Campbell is voicing different versions of Ash, including Evil Ash, and being joined by several other returning stars from the franchise past. Betsy Baker will be back as Evil's Dead Linda, alongside Theresa Tilly Shelley in special appearances. Oh, wow, cool. Let's keep on going, because I haven't really had a chance to really talk about this on the podcast other than the bad news. Other confirmed playable characters thus far include Ellen Sandwich' Cheryl Williams from The Evil Dead, Marcus Gilbert's Arthur from Army of Darkness, Richard Demeanor's Scotty from The Evil Dead, as well as Ray Santiago's Pablo Simon Bolivar and Dana Deliverio's Kelly Maxwell from Ash vs. Evil Dead, and the demon Eligios from the Star series being included as well. Wow, Henrietta from Evil Dead and Ash from Evil Ash from Army of Darkness will also be featured in the game, as well as Henry the Red from Army of Darkness. That's dope. And they got all these people to come back and voice their characters. That's so exciting. I'm so ready for this. Like, my body is long since ready. Is my GoPro still recording? Well, it's recording again now, and that's all that matters. So what's going on next in the news? We got... we have Scream 6 news. Paramount and Spyglass officially order up another Scream movie. I'm yet to see the new Scream movie, and I've heard mixed reviews on it, but when do you not when it's a long-term horror movie that's made its return? Production is already set to kick off this summer, we've learned, with Radio Silence's Matt Bettini-Ullapin and Tyler Gillette returning to direct the franchise's next installment. So they're returning, which means they're from that. Wow. $100 million worldwide. Scream 5 pulled. Holy shit. Wow. So what else do we got? No plot details are available at this time. Without spoiling anything about this year's movie, there are still plenty of characters alive to do battle with the next Ghostface. Well, I gotta look at that now, because that tells me a lot of people died in the current Scream movie. Yeah, I gotta see Scream 5. It gives a brief synopsis of the Scream 5 movie. In this year's movie, 25 years after a streak of brutal murders shocked the quiet town of Woodsboro, a new killer donned the Ghostface mask and begins targeting a group of teenagers to resurrect secrets from the town's deadly past. So I'll level with you. Scream came out. The original Scream came out when I was 13 years old, and that's all I need to tell you. If you're into horror and you've ever been into horror, all you need to know is that Scream came out when I was 13 years old, and it was great. We had so much fun. I dressed as a Scream guy for Halloween the year it came out. So did everybody in my school. It was a big deal to me. And I saw Scream 2, but I never saw 2, 3, or 4. I never saw 3 or 4, and I definitely never saw 5, as I stated. But I definitely need to see 5. My understanding is, it's the whole 20 years later. It totally makes sense for this to happen. The whole reason the movie's being made actually makes sense when you think about how long this works and how the character and killer of Scream works, and how he waited so long to kill someone in the first movie anyway. Because if you recall, the town already had dealt with a killer in the first movie, and now it was actually a repeat of that, which was really great. And the most amazing thing about Scream is it really saved horror movies. And I know everyone says that, but Scream really saved horror movies when horror movies were becoming cliche and so bad they were terrible. Some movies from the 90s really just did not age well at all, like their 70s and 80s counterparts. There's some good movies from the 90s that are good, like, for example, It, but that was actually a TV movie of all things. And, you have your Sleepwalkers and Tommy Knockers, but those are all, kind of cheese fest stuffs. And, even things that were good in the 90s were from the 80s, like your Friday the 13th and your Children of the Corn. All that stuff just came from the 80s if it was good. The 90s. And then Scream comes along with director Wes Craven, the guy who gave us Freddy Krueger, amongst other things. And he just blows us out of the water with this fantastic, beautiful story of a movie that's making fun of horror movies while being completely serious about the fact it's making horror movies and scaring the shit out of you. The ending scene to Scream is, of course, one of the greatest things to ever happen. One of the shining moments of Matthew Lillard's career. And the other actor's name escapes me because I'm just a huge Matthew Lillard fan. But just a shining moment of both of their careers where they just have a chance to really own the camera and the scene and the movie, and they just take it to the bank. They make all the money with it. It's beautiful. And I'm so excited to hear that there's another Scream coming out. I have to check out Scream 5 because, again, I'm not taking mixed reviews on a horror movie the wrong way, because it's a horror movie, and there's some fans out there that get their feelings hurt. Not everything is Spider-Man No Way Home, right? So let's see what else we got. Okay. Horror movie news? Oh, cool. We got some shark horror movie news. For those of you who liked The Meg, which was a movie that actually was in production hell. Yes, The Meg, the movie about the shark, was somehow in production hell for 10 years almost before it came out. I wonder how that ever happened. But thankfully, Jason Statham really, brought that movie to life. And his can't take him seriously, but you have to take him seriously because he's too serious to not take seriously, jokingly. acting capabilities in that movie really brought the thing together. But the Meg sequel begins shooting under the title Meg 2 The Trench. So that's insane. They're making a Meg sequel, Meg the Trench, which should be pretty good. I would imagine how it works is, if I had to pick the trench, they mean the Marina Trench, which is where, like, I think, like, the deepest part of the Earth that isn't underground completely. And it has, like, gigantic creatures that supposedly live there. You have your mythological beast. If a megalodon was real, that's where people swear it comes from. All that stuff. And it's just, it's something else. It's something else to imagine the idea of a megalodon movie of this series taking place down there. Because he's going to be fighting everything. He's going to be fighting krakens. He's going to be fighting megalodons. He's going to be fighting giant squids again. It's going to be absolute ballistics. Huge, like, orcas, I bet. Just absolute insanity. And I can't wait. So, Statham was bummed that the 2018 movie was ultimately rated PG-13, despite signing on for what he believed to be a much more violent project. I really hope that this is actually has to be rated PG-13. You got to sell High School Date Night to these kids, and unfortunately, this is a great movie to do if you're, like, looking for a good laugh. Maybe they'll make an R-rated release down the line, but, you know, I'm happy about it. I think it's pretty cool. Let's see what else is coming up. Oh, wow. We have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre trailer brings back Leatherface and Sally Hardesty. Okay, let's see what that's about. Oh, shit. Yeah, I didn't watch this yet, so I'm going to have to watch this. This was just news. I meant to watch this, and I fucked up. Sorry, guys. I'll definitely watch this and give a synopsis of it when it comes out. My bad, guys. So, apparently there is a trailer for Leatherface. I can see Leatherface in the picture, which looks kind of cool. He looks a little smaller than I expect, but I'm not going to judge anything off of a picture that's just him standing in a light. Actually, I guess he does look kind of tall now that I'm looking at the background. But either way, new Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Is this a movie? This is a movie, right? Yeah, it's a new movie. It's a direct sequel to Tobe Hooper's original classic, which I actually covered on my YouTube channel. But absolutely, I'm excited for this as well because I actually like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I saw that later on, and it actually was one of my favorite, like, horror films. I couldn't get over how terrifyingly awesome the thing was. Like, it was uncomfortable and discomforting even when I saw it in the 2000s in all the right ways. And I can only hope that they try to capture this because they've tried to capture it again, and it's really, really hard to do because the grit of that movie, half of it comes from its low-budget charm, and the other half comes from the art, the in-your-face art style of everything and how they put it together. It's just fantastic. It's unbelievable. I really hope they try to capture this. I really hope they figure out a way to make this work because I will be watching it and definitely giving my opinion on it. And other than that, guys, I think that's all the news from last week that I have to cover. So, yeah. So again, thanks for joining me on the Everything Under the Sun podcast. Make sure you join me at twitch.tv/illsun4k to catch me every Monday and Thursday night streaming games. Right now we're doing a horror game, which is of course Dying Light. So Monday is the Monday Night Massacre, and Thursday is the Total Terrorthon Thursday. Every night at 9 p.m. on those nights, you can find me playing Dying Light 2. That's what we're rocking with right now. Looking forward to playing Elden Ring. That's a game that's coming out soon. I'm going to check out too, in addition to Tokyo Livewire. But thanks for checking it out, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you could. That would be so great. And other than that, make sure you have a great day. Take care, guys. It's Illsun4k.